Today's data science interview question comes from Facebook. It's called Search CTR. So the question is called Search CTR. It's by Facebook. The question reads, we have two tables that contain search results. The Facebook search results table contains the search result positions as displayed to the user, and the Facebook search events table stores whether or not the user clicked on a particular search result. Write a query to calculate the percentage of search results that were positioned in the top 3 and clicked by the user. All right, so let's take a look at the underlying data. All right, so it looks like we have two tables, search results here. And so if we preview it by clicking on this preview button, we have 4 columns: query, result ID, position, and notes. So just taking a look at the question again, it looks like we want to filter for the top 3. And it looks like the position column is what we're going to be using. And if we look at the search events table here, so taking a look at the question again, it looks like we want to filter search results that users clicked on. So that's going to correspond to this column right here, has clicked. We're going to cherry pick and flag the yeses. All right, so let's write out the approach before we start coding. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is join these two tables together because we want the position column to find the top 3, and we want the has clicked column to filter search results that the users have clicked. Right, so we're going to join these two tables using a left join because my assumption here is that the search events table is a subset or could be a subset of the results table. The results table just includes all of the search results that were really ever made, and the events table could just be a subset of that. I'm not exactly sure. I could probably use an inner join and it'd be just fine, but if you want to be conservative, use a left join because all of the rows, all of the search results will just be preserved in your final table. So I'm going to write left join tables on key, and I think the key is going to be result ID is going to be equal to search ID because that's really the only ID column that we have across these two tables. So the next thing I want to do is apply this logic top 3 and click by user on the table that I have just joined together. So I'm going to use a case when to do that. So I'm going to say case when top 3 and clicked by user. So I'm going to implement a case when, and then I'm going to implement a count on that case when because I want to count the number of search results that are both in the top 3 as well as clicked by a user. And then I will also count basically all of the rows in the master table, which is the search results table. So I can just say search, or I can say result ID. Okay, and then just the next and last thing to do is convert this output to a float or a decimal because both of these are integers, and if you divide an integer by an integer, it's going to just be an integer. So I'm going to say convert to float and multiply, or I'll just say multiply by 100 to convert that into a percentage. All right, so with these 3 steps, I think we have everything we need to just start coding. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is join these two tables together. I'm going to call this table A, and I'm going to do a left join on Facebook search events. That'll be my B table on A, and that table, the key I want is result ID is equal to search ID. All right, so let's just run this query just to get it going, see if it's correct. And it looks like it is correct because I have an output and the result ID is equal to the search ID, so that looks correct. All right, so the next thing I want to do is implement this logic here where I want to count and identify the top 3 as well as search results that were clicked by a user. So what I'm going to do now is just implement the case when first. So top 3 would be from this position column here from search results. So that's going to be a.position needs to be less than or equal to 3. And from the search events table, I want to make sure that the user clicked on that search result. So has clicked equals yes. Then I'm going to add the search ID here, else null. So if it doesn't match these two statements here, then just don't return anything because I don't want to count that. That's just going to be wrapped up in a count function here. And you know what we can do is just test to see if I implemented the case when and the count correctly. And it looks like I did because I do get an output. And so now let's code up the denominator. That's really going to be much easier. I'm just going to count the number of result IDs from this master table, a.result_id. And so the next thing I want to do is convert this into a float or a decimal. One way to do that is just to multiply one of your counts by a number with a decimal like 1.0. And then I'm going to name this column percentage. So let's run this code, see what we get. We get the percentage here. It's still a decimal, so I need to then multiply this whole thing by 100. And so I actually now get a percentage, and let's see if this is correct. And it looks like my solution is correct.